How's it going, Andrew? How you doing today?
Great, Tyler. Thanks for having me on, man. I'm
Yeah,
good. Just started my
I'm
day, sort of.
yeah, I'm happy to have you on Valentine's Day, by the way. Just us girls here.
Yeah. Funny enough, I've got a long work day and no other plans, so it works out just fine, just like any other day for most of us.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I kind of want to share a little bit with the viewers before we get started. A while back, probably last year sometime, I started a podcast, and one of the first episodes I did was with John Goodman. And Andrew was one of the first people that reached out, sent a very nice voice message to me about like, hey, congratulations on doing the podcast. Keep up the good work. And ever since that day, I had thought about having you on the podcast, but I just really didn't get around to it. I wasn't that active with the podcast at the time, but just wanted to thank you for that. And that's kind of the reason why we're jumping on this podcast today too.
It's astonishing in my industry, our industry.
Yeah.
I see so many people and they behave in ways, and I don't think they realize it. And they're always asking for things. They reach out to people, but they'll straight up ask. It's funny. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people in my DMs, hey, I have this really great story. Can I come on your podcast?
Yeah.
Or I'm rebooting an event, and I have a limited budget for flying in speakers and putting them in hotels.
Yeah.
And I'm prioritizing Canadian speakers. And I have to put butts in seats. I have limited spaces for people to talk.
Sure.
And of course, I announced, the dates, and I hadn't announced the lineup yet. And most of my lineup was stuff I had in my mind.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of messages from people. They're like, hey, man, if you're looking for a speaker, and on one hand, there's the advice, hey, if you don't ask, you can't get anywhere. But
yeah,
one of the problems of this is it's so obviously transactional, and people all too often fall into this trap where they think about, all right, well, what do I get out of this? When, for success in any career, especially our world, the best approach is to relentlessly just show up and support other people.
No doubt.
Focus on unconditionally sharing resources, creating resources, do great things for people. Like Alex Hormozy says, make your free shit better than their paid stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're consistent, and I've traveled to a lot of events over the years, and I just show up to enjoy the event, immerse myself in the environment, connect with people, because I like being inspired by what other people are doing. I find it's motivating. I get great ideas from it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people I met in my travels have become really great friends over the years, but I'm not going there with an agenda.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are, and they're very transactional with how they interact with people, how they network. And it's easy to spot. Yeah. Instead, there's no harm in simply just being kind and supportive. It's an honor to be asked on podcasts. That's super cool.
Sure.
I do try to say yes where the opportunity arises, but I know people who've literally gone through the effort to make a list of all the podcasts to reach out to and ask to be a guest on them.
Sure.
And it's like, I know what they're up to, and they're seeking status.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff is, hey, they're seeking status within the industry, because they think if I get on the podcast, or if I speak at the events, that then people are going to think I'm an quote A-list personality.
Yeah, kind of aligning themselves with someone they know to be, a high level person in the industry, so to speak.
And when it actually works in reverse,
yeah,
if you just continuously show up, you create great free resources. I mean, if you're consistent in sharing on your social media, but go beyond it with long form stuff like podcasts or writing articles, or it's YouTube, or building great business systems which are serving people so well that people just will turn around and see what you're doing and go, listen, I want you to be part of my event. I want you to come on the show. And that's where the really good stuff happens. So I suppose it's a fair question. Are more of your listeners coaches, or are they more the general population of business?
Yeah. So it's kind of a good mix. So I feel like in the beginning, when I started this and I was just growing it, it was mostly my friends and family, and then like a few coaches that I knew. But now as I grow it, kind of speaking to what you're talking to too, I actually get people that will ask to come on now. And I love what you said about the transactional thing, because I think that too, like, I love podcasting because it feels like, for me, if you do it right, it's the one place that it's not transactional and I make it about my guest, like share your expertise. with my viewership, you know, like I love that.
And it's a way that everybody wins.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, and you get that person, and whether or not someone's like, you know, whether people follow each other is tricky because we all
Yeah.
have limited time. We
Sure.
all have, you know, our close friends, you know, the stuff that they post, you know, pictures with their kids, and
Yeah.
people are an important part of your world. Those things don't even do well on social media algorithms. So the more obligation follows we do, the more it crowds out, you know, these people that are important to us. So I'll
Yeah.
preface that, but if you get someone who's asking, hey, could I come on your podcast? Like this happens, and the person, we have no relationship, they're
Yeah.
not following or engaged with anything I'm doing, and
Sure.
they're simply asking for something that benefits them, that's an automatic no. And quite frankly, if I see
Yeah.
a pathway to this, then I know it doesn't matter what they do in the future. I remember this sort of stuff. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
this way. And I really don't want to do anything to share or support that person because of what I've
Yeah.
observed. I understand kind of what's going on underneath the hood of that engine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that makes sense too, because like speaking to just like one of the recent emails I got too is like, listen, I can speak on X, Y, Z, you know, I do this, and I'm like, okay, that's really great, and I get what you're saying too on the end of like, you got to reach out to people to get somewhere, right? But at the same time too, it should be more like, hey, like, can I ask you a few questions? Can we have a conversation, open up a dialogue before I'm just saying like, hey, showcase me on your platform, I guess.
And here's the flip side of it.
Yeah.
We all have limited time. Everybody
Sure.
listening, you know, if you're listening right now, thank you. Thank you for supporting Tyler.
Yeah.
That honestly means a lot that you're listening to his work. And I'm grateful you're here for my appearance. Tyler has a limited amount of time every week. He doesn't get paid to do this podcast. Okay. He does it because he wants to spend, you know, hopefully, you know, close to an hour talking with someone whose media he likes. And it's a really great opportunity to get some face-to-face and deepen relationships. And getting someone like Jonathan Goodman on your podcast is a big win. Jonathan's a very good friend. I was talking with him this morning.
Sure.
He's a great influence in the industry, and everybody should be following Jonathan's work, especially if you're a coach, right?
No doubt.
And I like me too. I only have so much time and like literally a spot a week to host a podcast.
Yeah.
And so I want to use that to interact with people I found influential, who I think are really doing great things, who old friends that I, you know, don't are across the country, or I'm Canadian, so down in the US somewhere.
Yeah.
Or even like literally overseas.
Sure.
I need to use that time in a way that lifts me up and charges me up too, given the fact that I coach all the time, writing, getting ready for public speaking stuff,
Sure.
try to manage social media. It's almost like two full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And to just take the hour to talk to someone about them, and they've already demonstrated to me that they only care about themselves. So I know what's coming next is just some sort of, you know, self-indulgent, you know, thing about their story. Here's the thing. No one cares about your story. They don't. They actually really don't, right? Everybody cares about how does this benefit you. So, you know, let's pivot this. And I know you've got questions.
Yeah.
Let's throw something really valuable at everybody listening, so that way they take away something from this that's super valuable and enriches their day.
Yeah, let's do that. So I actually went down kind of the rabbit hole of a lot of your work, reading some of like your Teen Nation articles, reading your Men's Health, read actually the one on your blog article. That one is how to grow a brand worthy of following or a follow. I'd love to go down that rabbit hole and kind of speak to maybe some of the things. You have a pretty massive and engaged too. Like it's one thing to have a massive following, but it's another thing to like when you look at Andrew's posts, people engage, people have conversation, there's dialogue, there's feedback. How, like for somebody that's starting a social media or want to get more into it, what are some of the big rocks that you would say people should focus on in building a brand that's worthy of being followed?
I've literally got a talk coming up on this. So if there's any coaches in the Dallas area,
is it for Kabuki? Is that the one that you?
I just finished Kabuki, and that one was more on fitness.
Sure.
Don't want to cross my keyboard. Thank you, buddy. My cat.
You got Black Cat Gang here. I love it.
So the talk I'm doing coming up, it actually was based on that article.
Sure.
So, I mean, if you're a coach, number one is serve the person in front of you. Okay, get really bloody good at that. I think a lot of people are really in a rush to, again, it's this transactional thinking. Well, I need to be a social media celebrity. I need to gain
Yeah.
quote A status within the industry. All this, and you can't rush the credibility and authority that comes from experience. Now, this is classic Gary Vaynerchuk stuff. Ben
Yeah.
Bruno, if anybody's familiar with Ben, Ben's a great coach. You learn a lot from him.
Yeah.
He talked about this early, where he started writing a blog fairly early in his career,
Yeah.
which was sort of seen as, well, oh, you haven't been doing this long enough to earn the right to do that. Well, that's
Yeah.
right.
Sure.
Ben was just honest about where he was in the process. He was
Like Ben is.
genuine and humble about the fact,
Yes.
hey, look, I don't have all the answers. I'm kind of documenting. So Gary Vaynerchuk theory, just document what you're doing and be transparent about, okay, well, this is how long I've been doing. This is what I know. You're going to be learning the whole way. You'll get better at it.
Sure.
Any content creation, social media or long form content, and I think both are important. You simply have to admit that, okay, I'm not going to be very good at this to start with, but if you continue to do it, you'll look back at the old stuff and be like, oh my God, I can't believe it, whatever. But that's how it should be.
Yes.
That's literally, if you're not doing that, you're not getting better, right?
Yes.
Again, so it becomes simply doing it. I am in the process right now of doing a whole bunch of background work on leaning harder into YouTube, but I have struggled to break the inertia to start filming. So I am struggling with that piece of advice, but I'm aware of it. So it is something I'm working on. I literally have a meeting.
I saw that in your about, by the way. Like, gonna get into it. Yep.
So it is something I will be working on.
Yep.
And I keep this at the forefront because I'm not just telling you guys, hey, I've been there, I've done it all. I'm the master.
You're in the process too.
We're always a process. We're always a work in progress.
Yeah.
So this is something I'm working on right now. There's also time and bandwidth to be able to do all these things.
Sure.
So I think, yes, pick a social media vehicle that you think works for you. And sure, Instagram, I think, is the legit hub. I think that's the credible hub for everybody.
Yeah.
If you're doing the video-based stuff, you probably should be doubling it to TikTok. I choose not to, just because, again, it's one more thing for me. You could double YouTube Shorts. It's really the same thing you can put in 3 places. Cool.
Sure.
2 out of 3. And you consistently just don't try to chase the trends. You simply share your experience, the things that the things that you are seeing with your clients, your client conversation, whatever aspect of the training experience, because most of the stuff is going to come from your experience as you coach people. If you're not coaching people, but again, I don't think anybody listening is trying to become a social media influencer who isn't already coaching. And for the enthusiasts, it's also okay for you guys to share and chronicle your process too, because you never know where that could take. A lot of people have come from that position and then stepped into coaching.
Yeah, sure.
So it's the consistency. It's the understanding you're not going to be very good to start with. It's, Seth Godin theory. It's like you ship the work, you get it done, you move on to the next thing, and you constantly are working on the skill of it. You will get better at it simply by practicing, whether it's writing or video or social media or both. Yeah. And then you just keep doing it. It's super unsexy, but your results will be frustrating initially. And if you look at a social media post or a podcast and you've been doing it 3 weeks and you're frustrated because your following hasn't exploded, you haven't gone viral. Sure. Your podcast listenership, like you said, it started with your friends and family. Yeah. And if you get frustrated and you quit, well, that's like the person.
You're not going to go anywhere anyways.
No, it's like the person like, all right, well, I've been working out and dieting for 2 weeks and I haven't lost 30 pounds. Yeah. And maybe they have taken 10 years to gain 50 pounds. Sure. Well, we've worked with those people. We know the mentality that goes in there, and that's not to judge or criticize those people, but it's also unrealistic. Now, it's our job as coaches to reach them and say, listen, like,
reel them in a little bit.
Let's look for the little wins and feel good about this process and make it something they want to return to. Sure. So for your own process of brand development, it does become less about looking at the metrics. I think data is valuable and looking for trends. But it is embedding the behavior and saying, listen, I'm not going to focus on the outcome. Again, we always talk to our clients.
The process, not the outcomes.
Exactly. Yes. So we have to apply the same thing to any process, anything we're working on, anything we're building, because there's a perfect analogy between the way that people want to transform their bodies and their lifestyle to the effort that goes into, quote, becoming a content creator in whatever form and entrenched behavior. I'm very consistent when it comes to podcasting. Yes. Pretty darn good with the writing. I don't write as many articles as some of my peers who just pump stuff out and get paid.
No, but you have a lot. You have a lot. Yeah.
It's not bad. But
it's solid.
Lee Boyce, who's amazing. Get him on the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Dean on there too, like Somerset.
Yes, Somerset's here in Edmonton.
Okay.
But
Yep.
like Dean right now is working on a book. So Dean's not writing a lot of articles right now.
Yeah,
But
that makes
always
sense.
pumps out articles. My buddy Shane McLean, he writes for Muscle and Fitness and Barbend,
Yep.
a bunch of Shane pumps out tons. Roger Lockridge doesn't have a big social media profile, but he writes
Yeah.
a ton of articles, a lot of, again, Barbend and Muscle Fitness.
Sure.
But these guys are just machines for article volume, whereas I'm still a full-time coach doing all these other things.
Yeah.
So I try to be more strategic with my articles. I want,
Sure.
as opposed to a very basic generic, hey, here's this thing for whatever publication. I
Yeah.
wanted something that's a little bit more groundbreaking or thought-provoking. Again, it's got to be of service. It's got to be something valuable. So
Sure.
I pick my spots and then I turn around and I leverage it. It's all over my media.
Yeah.
In such a way that it benefits the brand who are kind enough to include me. So I try to make it about that brand. There's
Yes.
there's a publication, and I won't name it because I've learned this lesson. You do not share anything until it's literally either on the website.
Yeah,
or
until it happens.
because I've had stuff fall through before, right?
Yeah.
On the goal line, no less.
Yeah.
And so it's a publication that I have a good relationship with. And I'm working on, my piece is essentially finished. I've been going through the process of, editing back and forth the editor.
Yep.
And then the editor is now left. And so I'm like, oh shit. But he was very clear to say, listen, I'm going to pass this off to someone else. We'll make sure that this gets done. So it should all be fine. But that article I have big plans for, because I think it's something that we probably haven't seen before. I think it's going to be really useful to coaches and the general population. So I'm actually really excited about it, but keep it under my hat until that thing is literally officially.
Yeah, I was gonna say, would you share a little bit about it? But I guess that really you don't want to.
Well, it's going to be an article on a concept called cross education. Now, people are going to be like, "What the hell is that?" So every coach has worked with clients who have an immobilized arm or leg at some point, right? You got a broken wrist, you sprained an ankle, bone breaks, all sorts. I've worked with tons of clients over the years. One of my clients a while back ruptured a bicep tendon and had to have surgery. I think he was playing football. Yeah, he was playing like flag football. Okay. So instead of saying to that person, all right, cool, well, you can't work out for 3 months, just come back and see me.
Yeah.
First of all, working out is not necessarily just about training the localized muscle. It's also about all of the overall physical and mental health benefits of working out, blood pressure, blood sugar, etc. And so you lose the habit and 3 to 6 months of time, depending on the severity of the injury. And that can be a fairly significant setback, not to mention if you're completely inactive, we see the injured limb usually atrophies. Now, it does tend to bounce back pretty well once you're back in action. But instead, what we can do is we can train the healthy opposite limb. So if you got a broken left wrist, well, you can anchor, a band to your elbow and you can still do some stuff, but you could actually just do single arm, shoulder, chest, pressing, rowing motions, curls, you name it. And there's actually a really cool volume of research that shows, and it's a neurological effect, which is what we call cross education. To where it has muscle sparing and strength sparing effects. And it's pretty good. So it can go a long way to you're not losing your habit. You're not losing all the other everyday training benefits. You're not seeing muscle loss of taking 3 months off where you would literally see some atrophy everywhere. And it actually helps to blunt the loss of muscle and strength
in the meantime.
Recovery. And so I've got a whole program with that. And it's a whole bunch of stuff that I've done over the years with, there's probably been at least a dozen incidences where I've had a client who was dealing with something like this. I have an old client, just as I'm working on it, I see her and she puts on her social media that she's broken her wrist. And so, anyway, I sent her a message right away. Listen, I got something in the works. And because there was a little delay, I just sent her an advanced copy of it. Here's basically the article. Just go. She was thrilled, right? So having a resource like that, it's going to be really useful for anybody else out there who's dealing with this, who's like frustrated because like, oh shit, I'm going to lose all my gym. And 2, with coaches who, I figured this stuff out along the way because you just deal with these sort of things. You learn as you go. Well, here's the plan. So for a coach who's, 6 months in or, newer to it, and it's the first time it pops up, cool. Here's your plan. Here's the science. Here's why it works. Yes, it's beneficial to do this. And part of the other challenge is for clients, it can become an excuse. People create reasons, justifications, post-rationalizations for why they get inactive. Right? So if someone breaks a limb or sprains something or just it's immobilized, for some people, it becomes a very convenient excuse to stop.
Mm-hmm. And some people are kind of almost looking for that in some aspects too, right?
Sure. And that's not to judge those people.
Not in a judgment way. Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
but it's honest. And we've all worked with those people that, well, shit, I have a hangnail, I can't come in today.
Yeah.
Mom said, mom needs me to go get milk from the store. It's like, you can tell mom you can get milk on the way back.
I'm sure she'll make it. Yeah.
And you laugh at that ridiculous example, but that's a perfect metaphor for shit. I've had clients who, mom says, I got to go do this. I need to cancel my session. I'm like, all right, well, I'm charging you for it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I think that's something we all do with things that we're like maybe anxious about. We're a little uncertain about the process, right? Like we come up with all the excuses we can to just like, okay, something comes up that's very minimal,
and it goes back to what we started with. It's creating permission to not do the harder thing, right? It's a community. If you've ever been procrastinating from, some big project or task, and all of a sudden you find you're very easily suddenly doing the dishes or vacuuming or cleaning, you normally try to avoid. Well, that's a clear indication you're avoiding something else.
The low return activities. Yep.
Because you feel productive. So it's emotionally soothing. You don't feel like you're procrastinating. And then let me bring back I lost my train of thought there for a second. People also live in a reactive mode. And at least there's a conversation I had with a client recently, very smart, very, very successful in her career, but it was fairly evident that, there's always these reasons why these important things were popping up and she had to discard everything and she's missing meals and forgetting to eat. And it came down to it and we discussed it, and there's this big awakening moment for her. It's like, well, you haven't created the systems within your work and the boundaries and the time blocking, the scheduling, and some of the delegation for other people to deal with these things in some cases. Where, okay, this fire that you're putting out, well, is it really a fire? And this goes to anybody's life, but also, why haven't you created a framework and a boundary to make sure that your meal is non-negotiable? And very rare, it is truly rare that anything is so urgent that if it takes you 30 minutes to 60 minutes to get to it, that the world is going to fall apart and there's going to be some sort of catastrophe. I mean, yes. And anybody listening who immediately reaches for the exceptions and the reason why I know that can't apply to me, that's the wrong mindset. Yes, there will always be reasons and things you need to be able to react to. But if you set boundaries around the 95% of stuff that doesn't need to be reacted to, then it actually creates the room to effectively react to the 5% of things that require attention. And in fact, in some cases, that something's coming down the pipe that you need to be free and ready to react to. And it's still proactive.
Sure. And go ahead. Yeah, I was wondering, like, so you're talking about kind of like this tough conversation that you probably have to have with clients quite a bit. I know that's something that I have too. How do you go about kind of like leading them to that conclusion on their own when you're working with them?
It's asking questions. Coaching is not telling people what to do. You get coaches. We've all seen this stuff where, and it's always bodybuilding coaches that do this crap, on Facebook, and they post up like, hey, if you're not following your program, it's on you, blah, 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 all this stuff, blaming the clients. It's like, that's not coaching. Yeah, you give it a program. But most of the people, especially general population, life doesn't happen on a perfect schedule. Periodizing programming is pointless for general population. It's completely a waste of time. Valuable skill, but complete waste of time. And instead of turning around and saying to the person, listen, it's your fault because you're not following everything I'm telling you to do. You instead dive in and you ask a ton of questions. And when people are struggling and hitting sticking points, if they trust you and they know that you're going to meet them with empathy instead of judgment, well, they're going to feel a lot more comfortable letting you know why they're struggling versus disappearing on you. Because if you're wondering why you're, well, listen, clients will.
If they feel shamed by you, like you're not going to be the person they reach to for help, right?
It's shame. And if you damage that trust, then it's really hard to fix it with clients. So, and again, listen, clients will ghost anyway. People will just disappear. It's because there's something going on there. But we can go a long way towards creating an environment where they feel very safe to share with us what they're struggling with. Clients will always worry they're letting us down. That's just a client thing. But more opportunity we have to communicate to them. Listen, no, like the time when you're having the hardest time with this it's the time that you most need to reach out to me and share.
Yes.
And that's when you can do your best coaching. And it's not going into advice mode. There's a really great book on this called The Coaching Habit by a guy named Michael Stainer. And it's a very simple, very easy read. And it goes over a bunch of questions and how you ask questions to get someone to lead themselves to the conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you go advice mode and you're always telling people what to do, it doesn't work. It literally doesn't work. Whereas if you facilitate a conversation and ask really thoughtful questions in a non-judgmental way, it tends to elicit the response, or at least the alertness, the awareness to the problem. It's the proverbial, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah.
So asking great questions, thoughtful questions, and then not using the time someone's responding to think of the next thing you're going to tell them what to do.
Yeah, like think about solutions in real time. Like,
it is our urge and our instinct to tell people, because we have the answers. We know.
Right.
We tell people what to do.
Yes.
Every coach has done it. We've all made that mistake tons of it. But if you get really good at pausing, and if you catch yourself about to tell someone what to do, pause and then reframe it as a question that gets them to figure out what they need to do.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Practice this skill as a coach. If you focus on this, forget social media for the time being, forget, the next course on mobility or biomechanics, you learn this skill and you apply it to the client in front of you. You're going to have better client outcomes. You're going to have better client experiences. Your client retention is going to be better. Your client referrals are going to be better because people are going to be sending you more work. And then all of a sudden, you're so busy that you're no longer really worried as much about, well, where's my next client going to come from?
Yeah.
And then it allows you, it sort of relaxes you and frees you up to be really immersed in the experience. And all of a sudden, then you attune yourself to, when you have great conversations, when great ideas pop up, you capture them right away. You write them down, notepad, tablet, whatever. And you thank the client and say, listen, you just really gave me a great idea.
Yeah.
A lot of my best article work, a lot of my best social media posts and other media I've created are from conversations or experiences with clients. So they're going to be the greatest reservoir.
Yeah.
Virtually everything I've written for T Nation is training stuff that has come out of stuff I do with clients or stuff out of my own training.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that too, because you're speaking from experience. Then you're not finding yourself writing articles about any, this or that. This is something you've really applied in your coaching conversations that's came up. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. People, unfortunately, I don't like criticizing social media. I really do think we can do a lot good with it. I don't like focusing on what other people are doing. However, it is fairly evident that there are types of fitness personalities on social media who are creating and making shit up. And it's obvious that they haven't worked with a lot of real people. Okay?
Yeah.
It's fairly evident to me the way that they approach social media that, maybe they've got a fair bit of experience before, but they've kind of switched and they're no longer working with people.
Sure.
Or they really haven't ever worked with people, and their efforts going into let's make up this creative new thing for attention versus let's do the fundamentals better than they've ever been done before.
Yeah.
Most of my social media stuff, that too, but most of my T Nation stuff is the fundamentals done better.
Yes.
My last article was, a head to toe breakdown of deadlifts, very in-depth. I brought my buddy Tony Gentilcourt in to partner with me because Tony's a Jedi when it comes to deadlift.
Yeah.
Go back a little further, and I've got a head-to-toe article on squatting. It breaks down everything from the feet to your head position, what matters, what doesn't. It's very in-depth. I think it's probably the best squat article on the internet, and I'm proud of that one. And T Nation loved it. Instead of going, we've already got like 15 articles about squats in the past. It's like, wow, we actually want to make this one of our like core foundational articles. We want to have this as a piece of our content. I'm like, cool. All right.
For sure. Yeah. I was wondering too, because kind of going off of that, you're talking about people kind of giving advice before they're even coaching people in person. What would you say for a coach that's maybe like starting off? Because I know obviously there's a lot of beauty in being able to offer online training, right? You do both, I do both. It's a great thing to have. But what would you say maybe for people just getting started in training? Like, how do you balance and divvy that up? Because I feel like I've leaned both ways a little bit too hard on both ends, where like all my day is training in person, or I'm training a little bit too much online and I'm not getting enough person-to-person interaction? Like, what would you say to that?
There's always gatekeeping language around this. I do not think this is helpful when you hear you need to be, I've coached a minimum of 5 in person before you earn the right to go online. Well, is that 20 hours a week for 5 years? Is that 40 hours a week?
That can mean anything. Yeah.
And we see that stuff usually in the generation that got big and did well, gained authority. And there was a formula, there was a pathway, a network that they got to become a part of. Yes. And this is before social media rose. It is naive and unrealistic to think that new coaches are not going to lean into social media and not going to do online coaching as a hybrid initially. I think you will always be a better coach if you have in-person experience. Yeah. So if someone is rushing to go online exclusively, then if you don't have that in-person experience, you are at a disadvantage. That is all I will say, right? I'm not going to say you can't do it. You're just simply at a disadvantage. And it will probably show up sooner or later in your results, your retention, your business. Yeah. Right? People will pick up on this. I think it's more helpful now to encourage young, new trainers to learn how to do online well as you're learning how to do in-person well. Okay. Yeah. It's okay to do it hybrid early. It's okay to build these systems. I think it's wise to follow the people who are building resources who do it very well. Jonathan Goodman is because he's had the Online Trainer Academy since very early on. If you have the resources to do the OTA course, if you want to learn online training, I would suggest doing that. I think that's probably the best resource out there for it. You can start with one of John's books. It's one of the Wealthy Fit Pro series. It's called Online Training. I think that's the title. Yeah. There's another book in the series I'll tell people. It's called Getting Clients and Referrals. And I wrote 9 pages of it. John asked me to do it. Yeah. Great book. Amazing book. It's really good. Anybody, and honestly, it's not just niche fitness industry. This principles will work for anybody in any career. Yeah. So if you read those, it's going to give you a leg up, and then you will learn the skill by doing. But I still think it's really valuable to coach a lot of people in person. Can you get away from the gym floor eventually? Sure, if that's what you want. I don't encourage trainers to be in a rush to do it, because I think it's a false promise by a lot of people marketing for business coaching. I think a lot of the business coaching stuff out there is predatory. There are credible people. I'll say this, you want to look at people who've got a really credible legacy of having done it. And if someone is very young looking and their social media, it has them
leaning get you $100,000 a year in 1-2 weeks.
Don't fall for this crap. Like, don't fall for it. You can look at business mentors, people who are giving away a ton of free shit are really helpful. Your Jonathan Goodmans, your Luca hosts of ours, your a lot of Jordan Duggar and Aaron Diamond are great. I spoke at their event back in December. Honestly, their IFCAs I think is really wonderful. Jordan Syatt and Mike Vacanti have a great podcast and a lot of resources for online training as well. These are just some of the great resources. There are others. Yeah, I'm forgetting people off the top of my head. Yeah, but there's stuff out there if you're willing to pay attention to the people who've done it well, spent years building the media, giving away the free stuff. Yeah. And then you'll find the people who resonate most with you, whether it's more of a Jonathan style, whether it's more of a Jordan Syatt style, or Lucas stuff. If you're a brick and mortar gym owner, you need to be following what Lucas is doing. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And so those people will steer you right. And then that way you can kind of steer clear of the flashy, loud social media hustle stuff that it's fairly obvious, and the promises are almost invariably overblown. So just approach with caution. I think it's great to get good mentors. I think it's great to read the books and listen to the podcasts because you're always learning. Sure. But I still think that coaching the person and treating the person in front of you like they're the only thing that matters and exists, being of a service mindset in all things, goes back to what we started with, is get away from this transactional mentality and always thinking, how can I benefit from this? I promise you will get so much further in life if you relentlessly look at it and go, how does the other person benefit from our exchange, our interaction? Yeah. And then if you do that with everything, people will want to support you. They'll want to be around you more. Sure. I've mentioned, some of the public speaking I've been doing and how people are in my inbox going, hey, can I come speak at your event? And I'll sort of be blunt, and I think there are a lot of really skilled, qualified people, but if I have a limited number of spots,
Yeah.
and I'm choosing between two people, and one person is a very well-known figure within the fitness industry. Let's say a Jonathan Goodman. Now, Jonathan was
Sure.
in our plans for 2020. That got blown up because the world went crazy.
Yeah.
But I gave him the option of a spot for 2023. Jonathan doesn't like to travel too much. I already got him involved in Raise the Bar as a favor to my friends who organize it. So Jonathan politely declined, but Jonathan, massive influence, massive legacy in the industry. And when people look at Jonathan's name in the lineup of an event, they go, wow, I need to go do that, right? And if it's my choice between Jonathan or, a Don Saladino or a Sam Spinelli or a Lee Boyce or these other people in the industry, Don, Lee, Sam are some of my speakers for this event. I haven't announced it publicly, but there's some tidbits here. Christian Thibodeau. And there's more. Krista Scott Dixon from PN, who's
very
really
cool.
And that's all. I'll leave you guys with that. If you want to know more about the Evolve Symposium, we're doing it in October in Edmonton. You can always shoot me a message on social media and I'll give you details and updates.
Sure.
But those names move the needle. And I'm going to give an opportunity. And I love the idea of like creating opportunities for up and coming people, but this is not the way. Kill it on your media, serve the person in front of you. And put me in a position where the following year, you've done so much, or years down the road, so much to put yourself on everybody's radar, and you've built the brand that people are following to the point where if I say, I need to put you in my event because I know it will put butts in seats. Now, a lot of the people who are messaging like, hey, can I come speak? I got a really great story. They would benefit from attending, but if they're speaking, the only person that it benefits is that, right? And they're thinking, they're wired to think in terms of status.
So they raise up their status.
It raises their status, where in fact it actually takes it takes a spot from someone else I could ask. And I mean, I haven't had a chance to interact because I don't know Jeff Nippard, but another Canadian. I may have one spot left to leverage, and Jeff is one of, I think, 3 people that I'm going to work through to see if I can score them for this event. Jeff Nippard is going to get butts and seats. Right. So we'll see. I mean, I can't promise Jeff because I don't know. We're actually from the same part of Canada. He's younger than me, so we never met.
So for people listening, and so for you've done a ton of speaking, right? Like, so you MC, that would be the Evolve, or no, that you work at Evolve. That would be, what's the symposium that
I'll explain that. Okay. So back in 2019, me and my partners, which was a larger team at the time, we did the Evolve Canadian Strength Symposium. And at that point, I had done no public speaking, no invitations to speak at events. So I chose not to be one of my own speakers. I emceed the event, which I'm comfortable doing. So, and then Evolve Strength is the gym chain that I contract out of. The owner is a good friend of mine. He wanted me to come over back 6.5 years ago. I started there.
Sure.
And it's been great to me. I left the old commercial gym. So along the way, I've traveled to a lot of events. The old Kansas City Fitness Summit, which is popular. Luca Savar's Vigor Ground Fitness and Business Conference, which is amazing.
I think he has one coming. He's speaking in Phoenix pretty soon here, I believe.
Luca and I are both speaking at Raise the Bar. Luca is speaking at a Coaching Con in Phoenix, which I'm attending because Jason Phillips, who's the organizer, Jason and I spoke on a panel together at another event called Strong New York. So Jason wanted me to come down and hang out. And Luca is also one of my speakers at Evolve Symposium in October. And he's also speaking at an event by Kevin Deneen is a coach, and he's doing an event in St. Louis. So Luca, Jill Coleman, Clifton Harsky, there's Tony Gelcourt, I think, from that one. There's a few others. There's lots of events. So lost my train of thought there. Okay. So I went to Luca's event in 2017 and 2021. There's been some local stuff. I've gone to a lot of RP stuff. I've gone to my friend Tim Arndt's Inland Empire Fitness Conference in 2018 and 2019. And then 2021, Tim asked me to speak. First time ever, asked me to fill a spot. So I said yes. I did it. One of the other speakers has his own event, my buddy Luke Carlson. I spoke at his event May of last year. And as I kept going to events, I kept meeting people who I just connected with without expectation of anything. Turns out they're hosting events. They're seeing that I'm speaking at events. Reputation is getting around. All of a sudden, people are asking, hey, will you come speak at my thing? Will you come speak at this? So I did 8 events last year, and I think I have at least 6 on tap this year with a few more possibly in the works. So cool. But again, I didn't go around messaging everybody saying, hey, can I come speak at your event? I basically just put the work in after I'm 12 and a half years into a career,
Yeah.
and I get the skill of it. And then people turn around and go, we like your media. I have a good relationship with them. And with the limited number of spots they have for any event, they'll ask, hey, I want you to be part of this. The week after Raise the Bar, I'm speaking at the Real Coaches Summit in Vegas. My friend Aram is doing it. And he's got a really cool lineup with Stan Efferding and Hallie Gilbert and Mike T. Nelson and Jay Tata.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch more. And I can't wait for that. It's going to be a fun event. But Aram added me to the lineup later because he was worried that I would be too busy to even fit in there. But because I like him, I said, listen, I'll fly down. I'll make this work. So thank you. But, I wasn't sniffing around going, hey, Aram, can I come speak at your event? So I promise you'll get way more out of all this stuff if you just keep showing up, supporting other people, doing great work, being really of service mindset to the clients in front of you. And if you develop relationships in the industry, and again, not in a way that it's obvious that you're looking for what you can benefit from it, and you take the long view, good things tend to happen. I've been very lucky. I've had a lot of really cool luck along the way.
Sure.
So my experience is not typical, but it definitely is heavily rooted in the fact that I just flew to a lot of events, made a lot of friends. I met Jonathan Goodman in 2018. Jonathan, he invested in me early before social media kind of blew up. And, because Jonathan was just supportive and great to me without obviously trying to benefit from it. He just literally wanted to support me. Then Jonathan is someone that I'm loyal to. And if Jonathan needs something, I go out of my way to make sure that I take care of him, right? Whereas there are people who didn't really bother. And all of a sudden they're asking me for things that benefit them when I'm now too busy. And when I'm triaging what I put my time into, they're not a priority. And I feel bad saying that, but it's also the truth.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. You're speaking to the piece of like when you almost kind of through Jonathan doing that for you and other people in the industry doing that for you. It's very like apparent when someone speaks with you that, you're just speaking, with them for, to help them out and to hear them out. It's like you said, it doesn't feel transactional at all. You're just always looking, where can I help? What can I do to provide value? And
something else happens if you are of service mindset with clients, the client in front of you, the career-based side of stuff. More things come your way, more opportunities, so you can be selective. You can be selective with the clients you work with. You can be selective with the opportunities you embrace. You can turn things down that don't feel right or don't align with you because you have to set boundaries around your own time and your own schedule. I struggle with that sometimes, but I've gotten very good at saying no to things. And then you were so busy choosing between the best things for you that you then don't need to go around doing anything to ask for people, hey, can you
get their approval?
Or if you got your sights on something really meaningful, like I'll give you a good example. After all the other things I've written for, one of my aspirations was to write for Men's Health. And, I've got a number of friends who are literally on the advisory board, but I've never turned around to any of them and said, listen, can you get me with Men's Health? I've asked them questions, and the tact I've always taken is I've said, you know what, this is one of my goals. This is one of my aspirations. I have to earn it. But the fact that I've already been writing for Muscle Fitness and T Nation and Generation Iron and the Personal Trainer Development Center gives you the credibility to do it anyway, right? And then, it was a conversation with Don Saladino, who's become a really good friend. And Don's amazing. Don's a great guy, big time of service mindset, very successful in our space. And, we're having a conversation and Don is just literally like jumping up and down and be like, man, how can I help you? What can I do? And I'm like, I don't like asking people for things. And I said to him, virtually word for word, one of my goals is to someday earn the opportunity to write for Men's Health. He's like, done, because he's connected with them. He's part of that. And then he turns around and facilitates the connection, gives me a glowing review because of the depth of our relationship. And, if someone messages Don and says, hey, can you get me with Men's Health? He's going to tell them no, because he's putting his word on the line. And so I got a glowing recommendation. I worked very hard to make sure I sent a great piece, great pitch ideas to the editors. They were very happy with it, and I got a piece published. So we got it, right? Because I didn't want to let Don down. I didn't want to let the Men's Health down. And then I went around and I waved it around in my media to support Men's Health. Not exactly like I'm a needle mover for a publication of that magnitude, but I still want to demonstrate to anybody that you work with that you are proud to be part of what they're doing.
Sure. And I think it's so cool. Pretty much the whole podcast, you talked about something along the lines of like making friends with people first, like building connections with people before you start asking them for things. Like, and it basically sounds like at every step of your career, it was, you're not leading with like, can you get me into this thing? It's like, I want to do this thing, but you get to know the person in front of you. And so they're willing to go to bat for you.
And I'm even very selective about telling people the things that I'm like, the goals and the aspirations.
Yeah.
I am much more fulfilled. What social media doesn't see is creating introductions between people that I know. I recently connected with the editor of a big publication online.
Yeah.
And that publication is in the United Kingdom. And instead of me going, hey, I want to come write for you, I just send the editor, because he followed me back, and I said, listen, man, thank you. I appreciate it. Like, love what you guys are doing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then he turns around and immediately he knew who I was. Like, yeah, I've read your T Nation stuff. I've read this, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then, so instead of me going, hey, I want to come write for you, I said, do you know my friend so-and-so?
Yes.
And my friend so-and-so is over there. And here's the story. He's great, really charismatic, awesome human. And then the guy said, actually, I do know who that is. So anyway, I send them a group message just to reconnect them. Yeah. And my hope there, because I really do think that it's very mutually beneficial, far more so than if I said, hey, let me write something for you.
Yeah.
And people see that, and then, well, I know that they turn around, they want to do kindnesses for you.
Yeah.
But it's more fulfilling to see them win than it feels for me to get that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm too bloody busy doing all the other things I'm working on anyway to take on more projects of that magnitude. But if someone turns around and asks, then I can decide, all right, is this aligned with what I want to do? Am I fulfilled by doing this? But that didn't happen overnight. That a very long time of consistently doing it without expectation.
Sure.
I hope that lesson shines through on this episode. And we'll say this because I know I'm out of time.
Yeah.
To everybody listening, guys, you know, Tyler takes, like I said, takes his time to do this. He's not making any money doing it. It's funny because we're podcast hosts, because I have podcasts too.
Yep.
We're sort of selfish in, we get maybe an hour of someone's time to, to hang out and listen to them, want to learn stuff from them. So obviously it's eminently valuable too, right? Yes. It is. But, anybody listening, you're getting this stuff for free. You get to tune in every week. Yes, I would be thrilled to answer your questions. And if you'd come follow me on Instagram, I would love to have you there at Andrew Coates Fitness. But more so, and there's my pitch too, more so, it takes very little time, not while you're driving, to go and give Tyler a review, a kind review on, whatever podcast platform you're listening. And honestly, one of the best ways that I found out about great podcasts is when other people I know have shared it with me. Yeah. So you have someone in your world who would get so much out of this show, share it with them. Okay. And this is how Tyler gets to grow this and make more of an impact on people.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me today, Andrew. And I look forward to talking in the future. I'll send this over when it's all ready.
Please.
Okay. Well, take care. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye.